Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Bellows Falls, and welcome to the feed. Here we are on February 19th, 2020.
Cruising through February.
Going through February fast. Seems like January took about a year and a half.
I read a post yesterday that said January was 17 years long,
I believe it.
and February
now
halfway
like,
through.
All right. We're here with Teresa Janiszyn.
Yes,
again.
Janiszyn. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Take Action Rockingham and some other stuff. But first, local events.
Local events. Well, it is that time of the year again, folks, for the annual Rotary Spaghetti Dinner.
Yay!
The only time of the year that you get to sample Mrs. Miller's homemade dressing on
That's
your salad.
true. That's
Miller's
we should
own,
have had that.
Miller's own homemade dressing
Yeah.
on the salad. So everything with the spaghetti dinner is homemade. The sauce is homemade, secret recipe, Tom and Sally McPhee's
Yeah.
secret recipe. The meatball recipe, Rick and Kathleen Gabotsky's secret recipe. And of course, the infamous Mrs. Miller's secret recipe. She never shares her secret
No.
ingredient.
I thought last year they were actually going to market it afterwards, but they didn't.
Well, I heard there was a rumor around them marketing it afterwards, Miller's Own. I heard someone actually made up a logo for
Yeah,
them.
I thought I saw a label. That's what I was thinking. We should have had that on
We should
today.
have that on. So it's held at the Legion this year. This year, it's Saturday the 22nd. It's 5:30 to 7 p.m. $10 for children, $10 for adults. This is the way my morning's been going. $6 for children. So make sure you come on down. We do have to-go containers, so you can take it to go. If you're not interested in spaghetti dinner and you just want to make a donation, we'll take that money too.
Yeah, but the spaghetti is so great.
Oh, it is.
It's
It's
so
a good spaghetti
good.
dinner. And we thank the Legion for allowing us to have it there because it's a much easier location for a lot of people to get into. And it's great. And then reminding everyone again that Cabaret is coming soon. It's coming the first, the second and the third weekends in March. So it's March 13th, 14th, 15th, 19th, 20th, 21st. Those performances are at 7:30. And then on March 14th and 21st is the 2 p.m. matinee.
Yes, and they've been working away on that.
They've been
haven't
working crazy. We were talking before we went live that they work like from January on. They're there like every night they can be rehearsing. They're there on weekends. I was getting coffee Sunday morning. The actors were in getting their coffee at like 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And they're there all day. They put a ton of effort into these shows, and it's all volunteer. The actors and the people that build the sets, it's all volunteer. So please go support Main Street Arts and support Cabaret.
Great, thank you. Teresa, how have you been?
Great.
So you're in the middle of it now, right?
We are. This is we've been incubated by the Vermont Council for Rural Development, and now we're launching out into the world.
Great. So this is Take Action Rockingham.
Yes.
And there's, I think some people have seen it, that we've talked about it.
We've talked about it a
But
lot.
for people who aren't familiar with it, it's a community program where the people of Bellows Falls have decided, the people of Rockingham actually, not
yes.
Bellows, that's not fair.
No.
And actually, I think there's people from across the river that came over, and
Yep.
there were a lot of people. Anyway, people have decided that they've set some priorities and they're gonna do projects to improve the future of Rockingham. Is that fair to say?
That is. So the important thing to know if you haven't been involved in the process is that they're all community developed programs. This isn't people from outside, from the state level coming in and telling us what our town needs. It's us coming together and deciding what our town can do to improve itself and what sort of direction we want to lead the town into the future.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also important to let people know that that no one's helping us. I mean, they're helping. Well, they're giving resources, but
Yeah.
we really drive the train. And this is
Yes.
the boots on the ground part of it, where you can talk about all the things that you want, but now's the time to take action.
Yes, and that's why we decided on that name. That was a common, not complaint, but that was a common statement, is that everybody talks about what should be done, but nobody's doing anything. And I don't think that that's actually fair or true, but the feeling was there.
Mm-hmm.
So the great thing about this program is this is reinvigorated. The people who are already involved are still involved, but we brought in new life and new people who didn't feel involved in the process before. And I think what's great about it is it's community-led, but we do have all those great state-level resources.
Right.
We've met a lot of them through the course of these meetings. The chair people are all being introduced if they haven't already gotten to know the people who are experts in those particular areas. And anytime we have a question about funding, about research, about permitting, whatever it might be, we have those sources, and they know us,
Right.
and they know that we're all working on this. So it's a really great opportunity.
It really is. And,
Let's just recap for the people that haven't been following us. I can't imagine they haven't been watching every week with
I know.
bated breath, but anyway, the three items that are being worked on.
Okay, so it's build a youth center. I'm gonna have to read them now, because I do have them written down. Build a youth center, advance community energy efficiency and resilience, and redevelop old buildings in Bellows Falls. So those are we sort of met as three groups along those lines. I was in the, since I was in the group, I would remember the Advanced Community Energy Efficiency and Resiliency Group. I was totally impressed. The people were really committed. There's a wide range of projects that people are starting to talk about doing. And like you said, the people the resource people that were brought in really did answer some really what I thought were hard questions. Like, there are some resources. When you think, oh, well, it'd be nice to have this, but who's gonna pay for it? They had several different options of looking at how you pay for things, how things come together, and I was totally impressed.
Well, that's the great thing. We're sort of starting from scratch on some of these ideas, but they've done these in other towns. So they know those funding sources, things that we might not think of. We all think about Efficiency Vermont, maybe, when we think about energy efficiency. They're a great program, but did you also know that there's funds available through the USDA?
Yeah.
You might not think about that, because we're a rural area,
Right.
but we're not a farm. So I think that there are really great opportunities and things that we might not think about
Right.
otherwise.
Well, there was one I was in the redevelopable buildings meeting,
me too.
and in the initial meeting, the gentleman there, Chris from, I think it's from Wyndham Regional, Chris, I can't think of his last name. He was talking about how, we always think about, this is 100% about redeveloping old buildings, but if we're redeveloping old buildings and we want to bring in new commerce or new people into those buildings, we tend to think about marketing to cities. We tend to think about marketing to urban areas, like urban people would want to come and live in rural Vermont. And his comment and his idea was marketing to other rural areas.
I thought that was a great idea.
I thought that was an
Yeah.
interesting idea too. That could be a whole potentially different market. If someone's living in a rural area, they like that rural, hometown, but yet their hometown isn't quite as vibrant as they want, or they can't.
Or it's changing,
Or
maybe
it's
it's
changing and-
being redeveloped or overdeveloped or something like that, yeah.
I thought that was a really interesting, so I think there's a lot of, even if people are listening and watching and they're not interested in these three things exactly, I think they encompass some really bigger underlying potential that can happen, that can move forward. Like this is the starting ground, but who knows how it might, these are the roots, who knows where the roots might go.
Exactly, because there really isn't any service to fixing up old buildings for the sake of the building still sitting there empty without a new purpose in 2020.
Yeah.
We aren't gonna bring paper mills back,
Right.
but what can we do? So I think that in keeping with our goal of improving our community, that's what we have to think about, is
Right,
those
right.
other purposes. And I think there's some great bookends to this. The three projects are all really related. So you're restoring and repurposing old buildings. Well, you're also gonna have to make them energy efficient. You're going to
Right,
have
right.
to insulate, you're gonna have to have LED lighting, you're going to have all those things going forward. Well, build a youth center. Well, wouldn't it be great if one of our old buildings could house that youth center?
Right, repurpose it for that use as
Exactly.
opposed to building from scratch, so much
Yes.
more. A lot of times you get more character in a building and, versus, I don't know, just a nicer space.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then it feels like part of the community because it's always been there.
Right.
So moving forward, if someone's been kind of following it, but they're nervous about, time commitment and how much time would it be, what would you say to them if they're interested in getting involved?
Well, I think now's a great time to get involved and to start reaching out to those chairpersons and myself. All of these groups are going to be active going into the future, but they may have different timelines. The youth center, for instance, is more of a discrete project. There's going to be a defining what they're going to do, there's going to be a fundraising portion, and then there's going to be an executing the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say, well, I've done grant writing, I would love to help with that. And you can step in for a little portion of that time. You don't have to, show up at the meeting and say, I'm going to be here from the beginning to the end. Because really, your job or your role could really just be going and talking to people in the community about the project, sharing your excitement, your enthusiasm. Hey, this is a really worthy cause. You don't know what your impact's going to be by doing something as simple as that. So I think that's one way that you could get involved and not worry about that time commitment. The other part of that is that we also don't know exactly what's going to happen and what structure each of those three organizations is going to take. So actually, we're going to meet next week. The chairperson's myself, Jenna Klosky. I think you were going to sit in. We can talk about that. And define what these projects are going to look like and sort of those volunteer opportunities within those.
Yeah, and I think maybe you'll have to come back for another show where
I will.
we talk again about when we get a little more, because like we keep talking about this, like it's moving. It is moving, but it's really at a really young state. I mean, it's the chairpersons have just figured out their chairpersons. The committees have sort of met. People have gotten together, but there hasn't even been a specific a first meeting of any of the priorities
Separately,
yet.
outside of this
Outside of the umbrella.
infrastructure.
Yeah. So there's a lot to happen, and
And I think it's important, you touched on, people looking at what their skill set is and what could they help with. And the idea they maybe don't have to commit to the whole process, but figure out what could you bring to the process? What would be your skill set? Like we talked a little bit about our skill set would be what we do here at FACT.
yeah,
That's what we
really,
can bring. I'm not a grant writer. I might not be able to make every meeting or do some of the other type things, but we can
tell the story.
We can tell
and
the story and we can make
disseminate
sure to disseminate the
information and
information.
let people know when meetings are and things like that.
Because that was actually brought up a lot, that right now we have a lot of people doing a lot of this work sort of kind of already in little groups.
Yes.
And this is actually bringing those groups together. And anytime you bring more people together, you have you're more powerful, more potential, more resources. So I think that's another important part of this whole process. You were saying that people, get discouraged because they think nothing's happening. Well, I think things are happening. It's just people don't know they're happening, and that's I think what part of this process will help get people informed, and especially people out there that again, they want to help, but they just don't know where to go to. Now there's a much more central, organized entity, Take Action Rockingham, the entity, and then it can't not be a good thing.
Yeah,
Not
right.
not be a good thing.
Yeah.
And that was again, I hate to go back to just talk about the committee I was in, but that was the thing, the first thing we talked about is what's happening currently in town. And the amount of things that I didn't know about was
I
staggering.
was surprised.
I mean, because I think I'm sort of, we do these TV shows, we talk to people, we see things, but it was amazing to me how much stuff is happening around energy and the energy committee in town, the resiliency with the community garden projects and stuff like that there's a lot of stuff happening and people just aren't aware, I think. It's just amazing.
Well, and that's another thing to consider is these groups that are already active and sort of have a core membership base and who are already doing good work. One of the great things that can happen out of this is those groups who have other projects, they can then turn to each other and to these new groups and lend their assistance and their membership base and, realize that this can help what they're already doing. And increase communication.
And I think it's also really important that that the town and the powers that be in the town are 100% behind the project. I mean, it was
Yes.
nice, Wendy was at the Restore Old Buildings and Gary was there, and they're actually already, for people that don't watch the board meetings and the trustees and the select board meetings, they're already doing a lot of things. You know, they've enforced the code, I can't think what they're calling it,
Oh,
nuisance?
they talked about that, the
Nuisance code?
nuisance ordinance.
Nuisance
Oh.
ordinance, okay, nuisance ordinance. So that gives them power to kind of take care of some of these
Not so attractive
not so attractive properties.
Yeah.
Well, so that was really interesting to me because it wasn't meant as a punitive.
It was meant to help people.
It's meant to help people. It's meant to tell them what needs to happen to
Mhm.
bring those buildings up to code. It actually can offer some funds, not free money, but low or no interest money
Mhm.
that can be used as a lien against the property to help improve that, to keep those buildings not just from looking ugly, and unkempt, but to actually keep them structurally sound.
Mhm.
So,
And provide a nicer place for people to live,
yes.
and to help people. Because some people, I think, it isn't because they don't want to keep their property up, they just can't keep their property up. So if they can, if there's a way to offer them some assistance, and I think that's great. And I think, the idea of just the town being supportive and all the work that they're doing, I think that's important for the public to know as well. That, they're not just, I think that sometimes, you watch the meetings and they get bad raps that they're not doing anything, but I think we have a very, very dedicated group of people in the town office and the people on the boards working
Yeah.
towards, now we have yet another platform to really have bring people together. That isn't necessarily governmental. I think that's
I
important
think
too.
that is really important, because we did talk, when we were talking about communication, we talked about, the town website. It's a great place, but it's an official platform.
Yeah, and they can only
And-
do so much, yeah.
They can only do so much, but we as a community, they can share our information with us. Each of those, the Downtown Alliance, RAMP, all of these other, the board trustees, everything, they can communicate with us, say through the building committee.
Mm-hmm.
And we can disseminate information in a less formal way. And I think that is also gonna be really useful.
Yeah, because I think you, again, being the town, they can, it's easier for them to share it than to try to generate it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think, if they're just sharing information that's generated from a different
By a committee.
a different committee, a different
Outside,
entity,
yep.
that's number one, it's a lot less work, and number two, it doesn't get them, they can just be neutral, we just shared it, we didn't put it out there, we just shared it.
Yeah.
They get in trouble enough as it is. They don't need to have they don't need to have other things. So it sounds like you just created a Gmail?
Yes, so in keeping with that theme of communication, each of these task force, I will be working with those chair people. But for now, until we sort of see what form those are gonna take, it's takeactionrockingham@gmail.com. Easy to remember, shoot me an email if you're interested in helping out. There we go, it's on the board.
All right. He's good, isn't he?
takeactionrockingham@gmail, and I will make sure that email, if it's not even intended for me, if it's intended, say, for Ray Masuko, that it gets to him until we set up those channels.
Yeah, so that'll be the central,
The go-to, yes.
central go-to right
Yep.
now, Take Action Rockingham, so.
And I also think it's important to make people understand that this isn't the first time, we're not the first town that's done this, and it actually isn't the first time we've done it.
Mhm.
So it might seem like a very daunting task to people, like the kind of, how are we ever gonna get anything done? But other towns have done it. There's a number, if you go to the rural development website, there's a number of, because they do a booklet for each town,
They
right?
do,
Mhm.
and so that's called their final report, and they are in works on that. And that doesn't mean final, oh, look, we did it, we're done, but that's their part of it is bookended. Here is a record of what happened. And you can go online and look at those for other towns. I think they've
Yeah.
done something like 56 of these.
Yeah, it's an amazing
And-
amount.
And they did one for Rockingham, and look, we have the clock tower.
Mhm.
I mean, there are
Mhm.
other
The
things that
theater,
came out
that's
of
what
it.
was funny,
We
but
have the theater,
It
yep.
was interesting,
And you think about that, maybe me as an outsider, like, oh, that's always been there.
yeah,
that
but
was a
no, yeah.
Huge
It was a
undertaking
huge
that
thing.
had to
It
happen.
was, because that theater was in like horrible disrepair. And they really, and now look, it's offering live performances, which I don't think the people that at the time didn't think it would ever get to
Yeah,
that
would never get
stage,
to
but
that, yeah.
it's a very viable opera house, so things can happen from a group of people being interested, staying passionate, and getting, boots on the ground,
Mhm.
moving forward.
Yeah, I think that was another sort of morale building piece of the meetings was people came and said, well, yeah, we can actually bring people in from other towns and tell you how to do, that have done similar things and say, well, this is how we did it. We're not necessarily saying this is how you should do it, but these are the experiences we had, this is what we did, and this is how it came out. And that's just, that's a lot better than reinventing the wheel
Yeah.
every time. And it sounds like you don't have to do a lot of wheel reinventing with this process.
No, I think that's important. That's a very important thing. I think especially with the youth center, it sounds like that they brought a lot of people that were actively had some form of youth center going, to really, because that's a big, to me, that's like the big undertaking project.
Well, it could mean so many things, and it does mean so many things to different people. Even conversations I've had in the community since that last meeting. Oh, we're getting a rec center. Well, no, we have a rec center.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that recreational activities can't take place at this youth
Mhm.
center, but that's not what it is. And I think that that's what's really interesting is it can be so many different things to so many different
Mhm,
people.
mhm.
So that's a big, one of their first tasks is really coming up with sort of
What
mission
is it?
statements
Yeah.
and what is it going to be.
Yeah.
The one of the gentlemen who came down for that meeting was the director of the Springfield, Vermont Youth Center. So I think that he had some really I wish that one of us had gone into that
Yeah,
meeting,
yeah.
but
Well, we'll work on that. We'll work on
Yeah.
distributing ourselves.
boots on the ground, report back. But I think that he had a lot of, similar population challenges.
Mhm.
And, they have a pretty successful, well-attended youth center.
Oh, that's
So,
good. Good to know. Yeah.
So there's lots of positive things moving forward, and so next steps is to keep
Yeah, we have to.
people focused, so that they know next steps are you're gonna meet with each committee chair,
Yes.
and then I think at least two of the committees decided on their meeting date. I don't believe the building committee came up with a definite first meeting date.
Yeah.
No, so 3 weeks from the last meeting, so sometime during that week. So we met during the week of the 13th.
Mhm.
So that'll be first week of March, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And then the
So-
energy
Yeah.
efficiency resiliency is gonna actually meet next week, the
Okay,
27th, at the Waypoint Center at 6:30, I
at
think.
6:30,
Yeah.
okay.
And I haven't gotten confirmation, but that's, when we left the meeting, we had set the next meeting for that, and they were
Yeah.
just needed to check up to see whether
They need to confirm that the
the
waypoint was
Waypoint Center
available,
is
but,
available. But otherwise, we'll come up with another place,
Mhm.
and, yeah. Exciting stuff. How
It is
about so, the building committee is gonna meet, two, actually,
in a couple more weeks, yeah.
in a couple
And
more weeks.
we'll do our best to get that information out there. Because this is sort of those first couple of meetings on our own, not
Yeah,
to sound
yeah,
scary. So we've got to sort of get those legs under us.
Exactly.
And figure out the problem is how do you, some people do Facebook, some people don't, some people look in the newspaper, some people don't, some people do posters. So how do you find kind of a central, that was the theme, I think, in
All of the meetings.
is how do we
Yeah.
communicate and disseminate all this
Exactly.
information? So we actually are kind of working on that.
No, I hope so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
moving forward.
And the other thing is get involved. I mean, one of the things that sort of surprised me is that some people actually signed up for all three
They did,
priorities.
yeah.
That's pretty amazing. That's commitment. I only signed up for one, and I
I
was
signed up for
thinking,
one too.
and maybe I
Maybe
have
they were
to
hedging their
rethink
bets, so sign up
yeah.
for three and decide which one their skill set, fell into.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot to that. People are interested because they want to help out, regardless of what
Mhm.
the project is. They
Mhm.
want to be involved. They want to better our community. So seeing what each of those groups, what forms they take,
Mhm.
and what projects they take on, you may decide that you would gravitate. Like I actually thought I was going to gravitate more toward the youth center because I
Uh-huh.
have three little people. I'm an educator. I just thought that's where I was going to go. But when I heard the conversations
Uh-huh.
that were taking place, I really felt drawn to stay in the buildings.
Yeah, right.
So.
Yeah, and the other point that you brought up earlier was that we met as groups at the same time because of the way the structure was, but that's not how it's gonna go from now
No.
on, is that you could actually be on all three, because one group might meet on a Tuesday every other week, and one group might meet every month, and the other group, and it's gonna be all, sort of more scattered and more independently operating. So if you, are interested in any of the projects or all of the projects, you should really look at that
Reach
Take
out
Action.
to me at
Yeah.
takeactionrockingham@gmail.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
And, yeah, are we out of time?
yes, we
We're
are.
getting low.
Always happens.
We get
It
going.
goes so fast.
Well, good. Well, thank you again for
Thank
coming
you.
on, and I hope
Thanks
that
for
you'll
having
come
us.
on again, maybe in a month or so, when we get a little bit further down the road and see what's happening, and see if we can't put some more information out there.
Yeah, I would love to report back and say we are thriving and organized and what's happening with each of those committees.
I think we're thriving. I don't know about organized
We're
yet,
getting there.
but we're working on
It's
it.
early though, it's very early.
Yeah,
in the
it is.
stages,
It's early days.
so.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you, Bellows Falls, for watching. We'll see you next week.